The sewer solvent scandal. It's the biggest case of government corruption in Iowa's history.
Any comment?
Just that I'm sorry.
235 bribes. 6 arrests.
There's going to be a prison sentence.
Over $1 million of your money wasted, and they denied it right up to the end.
Is somebody lining their pockets here?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't think so.
That's when the News Channel 2I team got involved.
Can I ask you guys what you're dumping?
Now it's your turn to ask the questions on this News Channel 2 Town Hall meeting, the sewer solvent scandal. Now, here are your hosts, Bob Hilton and Amy Johnson.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our live town hall meeting on the Cedar Rapids sewer solvent scandal.
Good evening, everyone. It's a story of bribery and corruption within the government of Cedar Rapids. A story of our tax dollars wasted and the struggle to make things right.
That's right. Tonight, we're here with the mayor and the city council of Cedar Rapids to explore just how something this rotten could happen for so long, and what the city and what you can do to prevent it from ever happening again.
Ever since our I-team broke the scandal story, you've been calling with concerns and questions. In just a moment, we'll give you the phone number you can call so you can speak out. But first, I want to take the time to introduce our Cedar Rapids City Council members and our mayor who are here tonight. Bob? Don Thomas, on my left, my far left, is the Cedar Rapids Streets Commissioner. Next is J.D. Smith, the Public Safety Commissioner. Larry Serbisek, the mayor of Cedar Rapids. Lyle Hansen, our finance commissioner, and Dave Kramer, who is the parks commissioner. And gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen, we also have a special thanks tonight from our governor, Governor Branstad. He said he'd also like to thank everyone for taking part in the town hall meeting tonight. And we had a chance to speak with the governor today. He had this message for our city council and you in Eastern Iowa.
So good luck with the meeting tonight, and I really think the community can be very proud that you've taken this action, and I hope the meeting tonight will help you develop a strategy to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen in the future.
Excellent. Very good. Hey, thank you so
Now,
much.
to help develop a strategy for the future, the City Council will take questions from viewers about the sewer solvent scandal. We'll open up the phone lines coming up in just a moment, and you can ask your questions live on the air. Please take the time to get a pencil and write this number down. It's the number you need to dial if you'd like to ask a question. 395-7686. Again, that's 395-7686. Again, we'll get to your questions coming up in just a few minutes.
Now, before we go forward, let's take a few steps back and find out where this all began. Back to when our I-team investigator Sandy Reescraft first broke the story of the sewer solvent scandal, and that was in March of this year. And Sandy, when did you first realize that what a humongous story this was going to turn out to be?
Well, it all began for me when Carol Martin and her group Citizens for Responsible Government came to me, and I started going over a lot of the invoices for the chemical. I sensed then that something was very wrong here. But when we tried to get those pictures of the sewer solvent being dumped, those pictures that I'm sure many of you have already seen, that's when I really became suspicious. Then Sewer Department Supervisor Rick Hermanson was enraged by the pictures we took of the dumping. It's what made us start asking some very serious questions. And here's what happened from start to finish.
It was early last March when we witnessed this, the dumping of about $6,000 worth of chemical down the 2nd Street sewer line by Quaker Oats.
Can I ask you guys what you're dumping? What is this stuff?
This stuff turned out to be hundreds of thousands of York tax dollars going right down the drain. The chemical is a sewer solvent used to clean grease from city sewer lines. But city workers told us it was dumped, not because it works, but so the city could buy more. We were shocked, and so were you. So we started asking questions, and what we found is still hard to believe. For years, the city purchased sewer solvent from one supplier, Intertrade Chemical, without taking bids. For years, too, the city was paying Intertrade, owned by former Lisbon Mayor Steve Golden, a whopping $29 a gallon for the solvent. But get this, Golden paid just $3.50 a gallon for the stuff. He was making an 800% profit off his sales to the city, sales that totaled more than $500,000 of your tax money on sewer solvent alone since 1989. Former Sewer Department Supervisor Rick Hermanson was the man purchasing the solvent for the city.
Is there something going between some employees and Intertrade? I mean, is somebody lining their pockets here?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't think so.
But Hermanson did know. After our first report on the sewer scandal aired, the state DCI was called in to investigate. On June 13th of this year, Rick Hermanson was advised of his rights and admitted he indeed did accept bribes on several occasions from Steve Golden and Intertrade. And in the early morning hours of October 10th, 7 months after the sewer investigation began, the Golden House came falling down in the city of Cedar Rapids. Streets Department Program Director Bill Lockhart was yanked from his office at Public Works, handcuffed and taken to jail. 4 other past or present department managers were also jailed on a total of 28 state charges of theft and bribery. Intertrade owner Steve Golden, who allegedly bilked you, the taxpayers of this city, out of more than $1 million, faces 15 state charges and a federal charge.
Any comment?
Just that I'm sorry.
Are you guilty?
We're looking at a situation where really the most serious case of public corruption in this state's history is going to have a substantial penalty tied to it.
Whatever the penalty, it's the people of this city who are now left to wonder why. Why did this happen, and could it have been avoided? This woman says yes. Former payroll clerk in the auditor's office, Beverly Van Horn, says she smelled a rat a year and a half ago. She witnessed all the money going out to Golden, reported her suspicions to superiors at City Hall, but nothing was ever done.
What did you think was going on here?
Well, I knew there had to be some paybacks or bribes somewhere.
Well, now that we've heard about the dumping, the woman who first blew the whistle, the arrests, and the aftermath of the sewer solvent scandal, one thing remains that we haven't explored. And Sandy, we haven't heard what you experienced covering this story. I imagine you have some stories to tell. What was it like?
Well, first of all, let me just say that this is probably the biggest story of my career so far. It was the most challenging by far. It was tough from the start because people told me, they came to me with information and said, Sandy, I don't know if you want to touch this one. I don't know if you want to have any part of this. You don't know what you're dealing with or who you're dealing with here and who you may have to confront during the investigation. People came to me and were fearful throughout of retaliation. So in that respect, it was really a difficult story to cover. Also, probably one of the most trying times was the night that we aired the first story. Steve Golden called me and told me personally that I was ruining his life and that of his family. And that to me, that hit home. It was hard for me because throughout this thing we haven't been trying in any way to ruin anyone's life. No. We just realized that something wasn't right here, and we really wanted to make people accountable for their actions.
I remember as you were going through all this, well, I'm sure some questions still remain in your mind about the sewer solvent scandal. What do you hope this town hall meeting accomplishes tonight?
Well, I think everybody here agrees on one thing. We hope that something positive can come out of this. I'm a member of this community. I'm proud of the community I live in. And let's take this experience, let's move on. Let's move on in a positive direction, and let's all be proud again.
I agree. Sandy, thanks very much. Now we want to get going. Bob, what do you have for us?
We know, Amy, many of the viewers that we've spoken to can't believe that a scandal like this could happen in our state, much less right here in Cedar Rapids. So let's put it to the council right now and the mayor. How could something like this happen in our city? Mr. Mayor, everybody's looking at you.
Sure. Bob, I think one of the things that I'm very proud of is the action the City Council has taken in early March. We became aware of the situation. We immediately asked for the assistance of the DCI. The DCI, through their efforts in a joint law enforcement effort, really uncovered a lot of the specifics that resulted in the subsequent arrests. I think what we've tried to do in the last several years is to become more open in city government. That wasn't always the case in Cedar Rapids, and I think that's how it happens. Being open allows people to step forward and speak what's on their mind.
Right. Okay.
Mayor, perhaps you can answer kind of a difficult question, or any of the commissioners here. Where does the responsibility lie? It's a tough one to call, but where does the responsibility lie?
I think I'll try that, Amy. I think we, the City Council, feel it is our responsibility. We're elected to serve the citizens of the community, and we take that challenge very, very seriously. And it's our job to try and provide the best service at the lowest cost, and that means making difficult decisions sometimes. Very proud of what the council did here. I think we dealt with some very difficult issues over the past week, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
We acted very swiftly. We acted with unanimous support, and I think it's the kind of thing that we take responsibility for, and we feel that that's where the buck has to stop with the 5 people you see here, the City Council.
Well, no disrespect meant by this, but a moment ago I asked you a question, how could this happen? We've talked about how we've stopped it and what's going on now, but the question that's on a lot of people's minds is, how could this happen? How did it begin? How was it allowed to continue?
Part of it might be some of the issues we've dealt with recently. As you know, we formed a efficiency and reform committee to look at our operations from the outside in, and that was done last year. Through that, we've uncovered a number of areas that we can improve. We can do a better job, and some of those involve our purchasing techniques, some of them involve our receiving techniques. Commissioner Thomas has been very active in the particular area down at the Public Works building in implementing some of those policies on how we receive, how we check things in, how we ensure that we're getting what we pay for. So I think part of that is just taking a look at ourselves and trying to find ways to be better at what we do. And that's an ongoing task, and it'll never end. But I think this council acted swiftly and dealt with some tough issues.
Before we go any further, I want to make a very important point here that we did invite former Cedar Rapids Mayor Don Canny and ex-Streets Commissioner Wayne Murdoch to be here tonight. Wayne Murdoch declined, and Don Canny is out of town until tomorrow. So we want to establish that right away, that they were invited to be here tonight. Don Thomas, maybe you can answer this question. Do you feel that the city has responded as best it can, and that everything has been done to correct what's been undone?
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. I think we've analyzed this thing very carefully. We've been waiting a long time, 7.5 months, while the DCI did the investigation. I've been anxious for a number of months to see this get to a point where we would have an answer. I was very surprised and at the answer, and overwhelmed by the information that I read last week. And I think we have responded very quickly. We immediately got involved with the terminations and unanimously agreed to those, and we're proceeding with very positive steps in the Streets Department, and I think the morale and attitudes are going to be going very well from now on.
Okay, Don, thanks. Well, when we return, you can get the answers you've been searching for about the sewer solvent scandal.
That's right. We're going to open the phone lines now. You can call us live on the air right here at News Channel 2 and talk to the council. Your questions are ready to be answered. The number is 395-7686. We'll be back.
Stay with us.
This is a News Channel 2 town hall meeting, the sewer solvent scandal.
Welcome back, everyone, to a history-making town hall meeting. Right now, we're asking the Cedar Rapids City Council how the sewer solvent scandal happened.
Now, we've been talking to them. Now, it's time to hear from you. So we'll take your calls live on the air. If you have a comment or a question about the scandal, give us a call. The number at News Channel 2 is 395-7686. As a matter of fact, we have a caller on the air right now, so please go ahead. What's your name?
I'm a citizen, and my question is this. In today's Gazette on page 8C, there's over $3 million of legal expenditures of the city of Cedar Rapids. 117 of those are for more than $1,000. How many of those have the item or service for which the money was paid? Not one. Almost $3 million. Which council member is responsible for supervising this, and will it change?
Gentlemen?
I'll take a stab at it. I guess I'm not real clear on the question. The city clerk publishes in the newspaper 2 weeks after the council meeting, or rather 1 week later, what the expenditures that were approved the week previous to that by the City Council. We have over 1,400 claims that are approved each week. Originally, when this all came about, the City Council was following state guidelines as far as taking quotes and bids for projects. All projects over $25,000 were under sealed bids, and any operational expenses were to be purchased by the department head with the approval of the commissioner. Since that time, we have required all purchases, both operations and for improvements, equipment, cars, computers, whatever, any expenditures over $5,000 to be approved by City Council resolution. Between $1,000 and $5,000 to be approved by the commissioner in charge, so that we have tightened the review of every purchase. In the past, the council's policies were in accord with the state code, but in order to tighten up after this.
Did you say 5,000 or 500?
5,000.
Okay, go ahead.
As the gentleman indicated, we have a large number of purchases each week. We have a $200 million budget for the fiscal year.
Okay.
So we have to draw the line at some point as far as the level of review.
All right.
Okay. I believe we have another caller on the air. Go ahead. What is your question?
Okay, my question is, my name is Sue, and I was just kind of wondering if, by any chance, if you've looked into the other departments of Cedar Rapids and how far you will go back to do this, and if you do this, would you possibly pick, citizens here in Cedar Rapids, or would you get certain people to go and look into the books to check out to see if there is any wrongdoing from way back, maybe even 10 years?
Rather complicated question.
I'll take a stab at that,
Go ahead.
Mayor. I think the council made it clear when this first came out last spring that there were possible allegations of wrongdoing or bribery or kickbacks, and the council acted swiftly the next day by unanimously, through Commissioner Smith in contacts with the DCI, called in a state agency to investigate. We didn't want any consideration of a biased internal probe, so we called in the state agency, and it took over 2,000 man-hours of professional investigators, 7.5 months to investigate this. They have looked into various departments, numerous allegations. They have 22.5 boxes worth of files that they have looked into. They have 3 ongoing investigations at this point. I think the swiftness with which the council acted as far as the charges that came out last week indicates to the degree that we take this very serious, we won't tolerate it. And if anything else does come to our attention, I'm sure the council will act just as swiftly.
Well, speaking of the council, we need to get responses from everyone. Yes, Dan?
I might add on to that I think the questioner asked how far back we were going to look. The criminal investigation of both the county and the state and the federal only went back as far as the statute of limitations would allow them. So that's 3 years in some cases a little further than that. So no, we did not go back 10 years or 15 years to look at what what kind of bill we may have run up over that time. They only went back as far as the statute of limitations would allow them.
Okay. We also sent our cameras around today to get responses from citizens that wouldn't necessarily be able to give us a call tonight, and we have one of those for you right now. Here's a question.
I'm Dick Henrich, and I was just wondering how this could happen in city business. In private enterprise, this can never happen without being caught by the auditors.
Excellent question. And
very good question.
If this were a private company, what would be happening right now?
Right.
Heads would be rolling.
Dave, why don't we hear from you? What do you think?
Well, our company, like this gentleman's company, is based on trust. That you trust your people to do the work correctly and properly. And if they're out to steal from you, they're going to steal from you. Yeah. Why do let's bring it back to banks. Why do banks have embezzlements? They got auditors all over the place. That's not excusing it, but that happens. But I was a department head, worked very hard to run a tight ship, do it right. Never was bribed, never was attempted. But all of us who are trying to do the job correctly are really angry about this.
So you're saying, as a department head, there's only so much you can do. You can't control everything your employees will do?
You remember this was the department head that stole, supposedly.
True.
So then how are these controls going to have a chance of working that we're talking about, that we've got everything under control now?
Bob, any set of rules that you set up, if someone is determined to get around it, They will find a way. Using Commissioner Kramer's example as far as banks, they're still bank robbers. You know, it doesn't matter how tight your security is, someone is determined to break the rules, they'll manage. And the trick is that we have tried to place better controls in place as far as securities to prevent or to reduce the temptation from some of these acts continuing. That's not to say it won't ever happen again. It's happened in the past. Fortunately, I think the city can be proud that it doesn't happen here very often.
Mayor?
I'd like to build on to what Lyle just said too, as well, and people may not be aware, but the state auditor's office has also, besides the DCI, been in, looked through all of our records and gave us some recommendations which have already been implemented regarding controls. And I think that's an important part, is that assurance for the community for the future that these things are not going to happen again. State Auditor's Office is a very, very thorough organization and did a very excellent job of pointing out some things that we could do better. So we feel very good about that.
Okay, we have to take a break just for a moment, gentlemen. I'll tell you what, we'll be right back with more of your comments coming up in just a moment. Well, regardless of how the corruption originally happened, once the scandal was exposed, the City Council took immediate steps to deal with it. What were those steps?
And why did it take a scandal to get precautions against corruption in place? Those answers plus more of your calls as our News Channel 2 Town Hall meeting continues.